बिस्मिल्लाह रहमान रहीम नामदहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम Viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned 10 types of people in the Quran who had who had wrong thinking, and because of their wrong thinking they were ultimately destroyed. Starting with Qarun, the people of Qarun. These are the people who believed that if they worked hard, they amassed wealth, they would buy things, they would be successful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Qarun enormous wealth. He was the richest man of his time, and he took great pride in his wealth. And the people around him were impressed by his wealth and thought he was very fortunate. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the earth swallow him, and the people who thought he was successful, who envied him, were then made to change their mind. They said, we were fortunate, we were not like him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed that their thinking that wealth brings success was wrong, and success comes from Allah, not from wealth. So with all his wealth, he was swallowed, and that was the end of Qarun. That's one type of wrong thinking that Allah mentions in the Quran. The other type that is mentioned in the Quran as wrong thinking is the thinking of Pharaoh and his people. Their thinking was that if they had power, they had nation, they had material wealth, they would be successful. And for a long time, people around him believed that was the success. But we know from the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed him. All his power, his wealth, all the means that he had were of no avail to him. So in other words, success doesn't come from power, it doesn't come from wealth, it comes from Allah. So Allah decides who's going to be successful and who is going to be a failure. The third type of thinking is the thinking mentioned in the Quran, is the thinking of people like Haman. So Allah has mentioned these people by name. So Haman was a minister of Pharaoh, and he thought success comes by high positions. And people around him were impressed. And a long time passed, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to bring him down, and with all his success, he was destroyed. The fourth type of people mentioned in the Quran are the people of Nuh alayhi salam. They were a majority, and they were very, very impressed. They were very proud of their being a majority. And Nuh alayhi salam and his followers were a very small minority. And the majority was not able to prevail over the small minority, so all their success that they had in the beginning was reduced by destruction. The flood came, the water came, and destroyed all of them. So that shows that success doesn't come by the majority, by the numbers. With all their numbers, they were destroyed. So success comes from Allah, not from the number of people that you have following you. Number 5, the Quran mentions the people of Ad. They were very powerful people, very tall and powerful, and they were very proud of their power. And the Prophet of that time, Hud alayhi salam, told them to seek forgiveness from Allah, to turn to Allah, but they did not understand. And we know that they were destroyed by the strong wind. Allah sent a strong wind for 7 nights and 8 days, and they were crushed to death. These are the people who thought that they could save themselves by their strength. They had heard about the people of Nuh alayhi salam who had been drowned by the water, and they thought that they were too tall, and the water could not drown them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them, and that was the end of these people. So their strength, all the strength they had was of no avail to them. The destruction came from Allah. A sixth type of wrong thinking was the people of Thamud. Salih al-Islam told them, as they had been warned by the previous prophets, that they could be destroyed by Allah if they were disobedient. Keep in mind, all these people were sinful people. With all their strength and resources, they were not able to save themselves from the punishment of Allah. The people of Ad had heard that the previous nation of the people of Thamud had heard about the people of Ad, that they had been destroyed by the wind. So they decided to make their homes in the mountains because they thought the wind would not be able to penetrate their homes in the mountains. And they tried to protect themselves like the previous people had tried to protect themselves. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an earthquake, and there was a loud shriek, and they were found dead in their homes. That type of thinking also was not the right thinking. So that's the sixth example of the wrong thinking of the people mentioned in the Quran. The seventh type of wrong thinking is about the people of Shu'aib al-Islam. They were business people, but they were dishonest people. They were cheating people, and they were warned by Prophet Shu'aib al-Islam, but they did not understand. They had great pride, just like the previous nations. So they told Shu'aib al-Islam that had it not been for his tribe, they would have stoned him to death. And Shu'aib al-Islam told them, "Are you afraid of my tribe and not afraid of Allah?" So these people still, they were misled by the ignorance, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them. And they were also destroyed like the previous people. It said the first was, there was a loud shout, an earthquake, and fire from the clouds that destroyed these people. So that's another example of people with wrong thinking, who thought success would come by their prosperity, by the business. They were business people. The eighth type of wrong thinking mentioned in the Quran is the people of Sabah. These were people had enormous wealth, gardens, crops. Allah had given them great blessings. They had a very prosperous, luxurious life. But they were also disobedient. They were ungrateful to Allah. And they did not pay any attention to the commandments of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to destroy them for their ingratitude. There was a dam which was breached, which was destroyed by, it said that Allah sent rats, and they made holes in it, and the dam was breached, with the result that the whole area was flooded, and these people were destroyed through that punishment. So that's another example of people who were very proud of their achievements, who were proud of their prosperity, who were proud of their wealth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed that success comes from Allah, not from these things. The ninth type of people mentioned by Allah is the people of Bani Israel. They tried to be clever with Allah. Allah had told them not to fish on Sabbath, on Saturday. But they would trap the fish. The fish would come up on the Sabbath, on the day where they were not supposed to fish. It was prohibited for them. But they trapped them, and they thought they could trick, or they could make their plan work by trapping them and catching them the next day. So they obeyed the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law, with the result that they angered Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned them into monkeys, and they could recognize each other. They had the minds of humans, but their faces were turned into monkeys, and they lived for 3 days, and then Allah killed them after 3 days. So that type of thinking also proved to be wrong, that you could trick Allah, you could deceive Allah by appearing to follow His commandments and then in reality not doing so. Sometimes people think that if they follow the letter of the law but not the spirit, they can get away with it. But Allah is showing in this example that one has to follow the letter of the law and also the spirit of the law. If one tries to be clever or try to deceive Allah, then Allah is not deceived. These people who are trying to do that are themselves deceived. And the 10th type of people who had the wrong thinking were mentioned in the Quran are the people or the army of Abraha, the king who had come to destroy the Kaaba with his army of elephants, the army of elephants. So this was considered to be an unbeatable army. The army of elephants was very powerful. There was no resistance, and he was sure that there was no way he could be stopped. But he did not understand the power of Allah. He thought success would come through his army. So this is a lesson for the people of strong armies, that armies don't give success. It is Allah who gives success. And this type of thinking also proved to be wrong. He thought his army would give him success. And Allah showed that his army was destroyed by little birds carrying little pieces of clay that were thrown at these elephants and destroyed the whole army of Abraham. So what it proves is, what it says means, why is Allah telling us all these things in the Quran? Is to show that success comes from Allah. It doesn't come from armies. It doesn't come from wealth. It doesn't come from business. It doesn't come from position. As we know from the Quran, the power was given to Pharaoh. He was not successful in his power. Wealth was given to Qarun. He was not successful in his wealth. Position was given to Haman. He was not successful in his position. The people of Nuh al-Islam had majority, but they were not successful in that. The people of Ad, they were very strong, they were powerful. They were not successful in that. The people of Shuaib al-Islam, they had great resources, big businesses, but they were not successful in that. The people of Saba, they were very, very prosperous people, living in great luxury, but they were not successful in that. The Bani Israel, who were very proud of their successes and proud of their knowledge, but because of their own thinking, they were not successful in that. They deceived themselves, thinking they were going to deceive Allah. And the army of Abraham was also defeated, was also destroyed by Allah. So the lesson to be learned is that wrong thinking brings wrong actions, and wrong actions lead to destruction. So the question then is, what is the right thinking? You see, the right thinking in the Quran is that two things lead to success in this life and in the next life. The two things that lead to success, which Allah has mentioned in the Quran, are Iman, faith, and the amal, the actions that come. So if the person has the right faith and the right belief and the right thinking, then it will lead to the right actions. And the right actions will lead to success in this life and in the next life. So the question is, what is faith and what is right amal? So Allah has mentioned what is right faith, what is right iman. And Allah has also mentioned what are the right actions. So this is why the Quran goes in great detail as to what will happen when Allah is obeyed. If Allah is obeyed, then He will be happy. And Allah will be happy. He will give success to the people who make Allah happy. For example, if a boss tells his subordinate to carry out his orders, the subordinate, understands the power of the boss and immediately carries out the order. And the boss is happy, and he thinks that the boss is going to give him success. And the same person, when he hears the azan, he doesn't respond to that. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, because his iman, his faith is that success comes not from Allah, but it comes from the boss. And he goes on living his life in the wrong thinking, and then one day he realizes that his thinking was not correct. But that is too late. He has missed the boat, so to speak. So if he had been obeying Allah, and if he had been following these commands, he would have realized that that is the correct thinking. This is what the Quran talks about, that the correct thinking is to obey Allah and also to follow his commandments. So the correct thinking mentioned in the Quran is the faith and the amal that come from the faith. For example, there are so many verses in the Quran about the people of Iman, that what will Allah do to the people of Iman? For example, Allah says that Allah is the friend of the people of Iman. So people who obey Allah, Allah becomes their friend. And if Allah becomes the friend, then what else does a person need? So he has a friend who is the most powerful friend anyone can have. Allah has promised to defend people of Iman. This is the promise of Allah. If someone attacks them, Allah defends that person. And Allah says that it is Allah's right to help people of Iman. Although nobody can say he has a right on Allah, but Allah has himself made it upon himself, taken it upon himself to help those who are people of Iman. Allah has said he helps his Rasuls, his messengers, and the people of Iman, people of faith. Now this is again a promise of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if person of Iman is in any difficulty, Allah will give him relief from that difficulty. And the example is mentioned of Yunus alayhi salam, who had been swallowed by a fish, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heard his voice, saved him from inside the fish. And Allah has mentioned that this is how he helps people of Iman. He saved him from this calamity, but he has also mentioned that Allah saves people of Iman in conditions where there is no other way of getting out of the difficulty. So this is another promise of Allah. Then Allah has said that he will give respect, honor to the people of Iman. He has promised that. So in other words, success comes from obedience to Allah. People who have Iman are obedient to Allah. A person who doesn't have Iman cannot be obedient to Allah. Iman and disobedience do not go together. They cannot go. A person who has Iman will never give up Salat. It's not possible for a person of Iman not to make Salat. It is not possible for a person who has Iman not to fast. It is not possible for a person who has Iman to do haram, to do prohibited things, to look at what is prohibited, to say what's prohibited, to hear what's prohibited. In other words, he is not going to disobey Allah in any respect. That's a sign of Iman. And these are the kind of people Allah has promised success. Allah has also promised that he will give good life, pure life to the people of Iman. Just imagine how many promises there are in the Quran about people of Iman. Allah has said he will make them prevail over others. He will make the people of Iman prevail over others. Allah has said that Allah will make people love them. Allah will put love in the hearts of the people of Iman, in the hearts of the people for people of Iman. There's a long hadith about Allah. When Allah loves somebody, he tells Jibreel alayhi salam that he loves him and he should also love him. Jibreel alayhi salam then makes an announcement to the inhabitants of the heavens that Allah loves so and so, you also love. And then they make an announcement to the people on earth that so and so is loved by Allah, so you also love. So Allah puts the love in the hearts of the people. like Allah has put the love of the hearts in the hearts of the people for the Sahaba, for the companions of Rasulullah. He's put the love of the prophets in the hearts of the people. So this is the promise of Allah, that He will put the love in the hearts of the people for them. Allah has promised people of Iman that He will give them Khilafat over the earth to them. Now this is not the purpose of Iman, but this is a promise of Allah. The Sahaba did not have Iman just for getting the Khilafat, but this was a promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made, that when people of Iman reach that level, then Allah will give them as a reward. This is a reward in this life. And Khilafat came after the efforts had been made by Rasulullah sallallahu and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu and the Sahaba. The Khilafat came as a reward to the Sahaba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this conditional. So Khilafat is not given by snatching. Khilafat cannot be taken by snatching it from people. It's a gift bestowed by Allah as a result of the Iman of the people. So if people want to get Khilafat without Iman, that will not happen. Iman first, that's the way the ulama explain it. The Iman came first and the Khilafat came afterwards. So if somebody is trying to get Khilafat without Iman, that's not possible. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the effort of Iman. For 23 years, he was making the effort of Iman. And when the Iman had reached that level, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed Khilafat on the people. So these are some of the benefits. This is success. This is the success that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about in the Quran. And people who want to know what success is, people want to get the success, they have to look at the Quran and think about it, ponder over it. All these people who have been mentioned in the Quran are people who had things of the dunya, had things of this world, material wealth, power, etc. But despite all that, their end was not good. That's why the Quran mentions, see what was the end of the people. They thought they were going to be successful, but in reality, they turned out to be failures. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the understanding of the Quran. Wa akhir dawana in alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.